Howdy folks, this is Colt 38 Cowboy here, and bear in mind for this video all I'm going to do is talk. Today we're going to be discussing a topic very near and dear to my heart, and that's the gun that won the West. Now, for those of you who don't know, the phrase gun that won the West, actually the rifle that won the West, was Winchester advertisement for their 1894 rifle. Since then, it's been attributed to multiple different guns over the years, and today I'm going to give a short rundown of what I think could possibly be the gun that won the West. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first firearm that I'm going to suggest is an old percussion cap or flintlock muzzleloader. Uh, Basically, these are kind of simple weapons. You put powder, a patch, a ball up here, ram it home with your ramrod, then you come back here, pull the hammer back, put a percussion cap on this nipple here, and then fire it. This has double set triggers. So you pull the back one back, and it sets the first one to a very light trigger pull. These were really popular up until about 1860s, 1870s, when cartridge guns were becoming available. Now, the problem with these is a lot of people believe that the golden age of the West was about the Civil War up to the turn of the century, and that one of these was more typical on during the era of westward expansion, and so to a lot of people, these would not play a role. So you move on to the next rifle in the series of production. You get trapdoor Springfields, such as the cavalry used. You get single shot 45-70s. I don't have any of those, so I'm not going to get into much detail. But just to say, they were there. They were popular. They were used a lot for hunting primarily. Then you have something like a Winchester 1873. These rifles were manufactured in 44-40, as well as other calibers. 44-40 was the most popular. Colt actually started selling their Peacemaker in 44-40 so that you could buy two guns to match. This one is chambered in 357 Magnum. It's a reproduction by Uberti. It is not historically accurate in that caliber. And this one is actually a lot simpler than the muzzleloader. What you do is you take a cartridge. This one has no primer. You load it into the rifle from this little side gate. On Henry's, you don't have a forearm, and you come up all the way up here, twist a barrel band, and you load from the front like a 22. But then, once you have the rounds in the rifle, you work the lever, which brings this elevator up. That's the round I just put in. The bolt goes forward, and then the elevator drops. And now you have a round in the chamber. Hammer comes back. This is why Winchester did better than, say, the Spencer rifle, because it cocked the hammer as you work the lever. But then you pull the trigger. The gun goes off. The bullet exits the barrel, and then it ejects the cartridge, or it ejects the casing. These were really popular. Billy the Kid preferred one of these to his pistols. The Texas Rangers carried these. Lots of lawmen made sure that they could afford one of these. It was really the AR-15 of the era. Basically, those who could afford it, had it, loved it, used it as their fighting gun. So on and so forth. I could go on for hours about these guns, but for the sake of brevity, I'm going to say 60 Henry, 66 Winchester, 73, 76, 1886, 1892, 1894. All the Winchesters have a place. This is just a placeholder. This is just me pointing out the Winchester. The next firearm to me is probably no contest, the gun that won the West. And to a lot of people, they're going to think I fell off my rocker, but let me explain. The double-barreled shotgun, actually pretty much any shotgun, whether it be percussion cap where you have to load it from the front, whether it be a break action like this, empty, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, 6 gauge, 8 gauge, I like them all. And one reason for that is you don't have to be exactly precise with this. You just have to put both barrels in the direction of what you're shooting at and pull the triggers. Another reason is manufacturing your own ammo is rather simple. You just drizzle molten lead into a bucket of water and collect the pellets at the bottom. Another reason is with these two barrels, sometimes you would get a modified choke and a full choke. And so when you're hunting or fighting or whatever you are, you can fire the first barrel and say you miss, you can follow it up with another shot and then hit. These guns were extremely popular. They were extremely cheap. Police offices, outlaws, your local farmer, they would all try to have a gun like this because you could kill anything that walked or crawled on four legs or two, walks, swims, flies, doesn't matter. You can bag it with a 12 gauge or with a double-barreled shotgun. You can pretty much bag it with a 12 gauge, but if you wanted an 8 gauge or a 6 gauge, yeah, go ahead. These were, like I said, fairly cheap, extremely reliable, as far as black powder cartridges can be, of course. The shotguns were extremely reliable. I am a huge fan of shotguns. The next three, they don't really fit a whole lot into what I consider the gun that won the West, and I'll kind of explain as I go. But well, to get into it, I don't have the next gun, so I'm using a placeholder. Percussion cap revolvers. Now, this is a cartridge gun. This is made by Cimarron. It's a 38 special, but it resembles a 51 Navy in 36 caliber, and so I'm using it as my stand-in. Basically, these were popular well into the cartridge era. A lot of people carried these. Bill Hickok carried these up until his death in Deadwood. And they were, by the time that we moved on to bigger and better firearms, double actions, semi-automatics, I like to call this the 1911 of the era. 1911s have a 7-round capacity. This has a 6. But when you consider how long it takes to reload one of these, it starts to feel like you have limited capacity as compared to the next gun on our list, the Colt Peacemaker. Now, with a percussion, basically you load it from the front of the cylinder, and you add a nipple to the back, or you add a cap to the nipple on the back. That takes quite a while. On a Peacemaker, you open this little side gate, put the gun on half cock, and you load it. You load fresh cartridges in. This is really the Glock of the era. You have other firearms like the 75 Remington or the Schofield from Smith & Wesson. But really, this is one of the more popular firearms of the era, just in terms of numbers manufactured and sold. The Army had some of these. Lots of Old West personalities loved this gun. The problem is it was fairly expensive for what it is. Once again, this is a personal carry gun. If you're arming let's say a militia to go on a manhunt, you're not going to arm them with Colt Peacemakers. You're going to arm them with Winchesters or shotguns because you need range. A Colt, really, its job is to sit on your hip, probably never be fired in self-defense, but if you need it, you bring it out and you use it. And I emptied all of these before I sat down. So if I dry fire one of these, don't get spooked. Of course, if we're talking 1911 of the era, Glock of the era, really there's another pistol. And once again, I don't consider this the gun that won the West. I don't think handguns really have a place at that table, for the simple fact that in most cases your handgun was not deployed. It really is like a handgun today. If you're going into a gunfight, you're going to want to carry a high capacity rifle or a shotgun or something a little longer range. You aren't going to strap up with 3 or 4 handguns and call it good. The next pistol, I want to give a little background on before I start, because it's actually kind of, well, I geek out about it. Let's say that. This is a little Colt Lightning. This is my concealed carry gun. I emptied it beforehand. This is a little double action Colt. This was manufactured in 1881. As you can see, there is a little bit of nickel finish remaining on this firearm, and there will be nickel finish on it again. This was special ordered by someone here in the state of Utah in 1881. Almost dropped a gun there. Special ordered in Utah, 1881. They requested it nickel plated, gutta percha grips, and they wanted a little fine tuning in the action. Now, a gun like this is what's called the shopkeeper model. You can actually get a barrel that's up to 7.5 inches, like the Colt. This one, however, is chambered in .38, and this is really meant to represent all pocket guns, whether they're double action, single action. You could get Bulldog revolvers from England or Belgium. You could get Colts, Remingtons, Smith & Wessons. You could get them percussion cap. You could get them cartridge guns. You could get them 38, 41, 38 short. You could get them, the list goes on and on. But a gun like this is definitely not in the running for the gun that won the West. And for one simple reason, it's a pocket gun. I stick it in my pocket and I go to town and I spend my money and I do my thing, and no one knows that I have a gun on me, and I probably never use it. The store that I bought this from, it was a pawn shop, full disclosure, had another one of these, and it was actually far more typical than this one. This one was someone's carry gun that was probably seen a lot. The other one had never been fired, and it had a slight bit of pitting and rust on the underside where it had sat on someone's nightstand its whole career. And he said, I'm not going to get it refinished. I'm not going to do anything like that, because this gun is worth a lot of money in the condition that it is. The one that I sold you, yeah, nickel's coming off. Someone had carried and shot it, and so it's not worth as much. This was $500. And that's sort of that was more typical. This little gun, not as typical. Someone carrying it probably rode in a holster on the hip because it was nickel plated. They wanted people to see it. It was probably far more uncommon to see these guns than, say, a Colt. And so, gun like this, it's not the gun that won the West, but it is your little concealed carry gun today. You still carry a pocket-sized gun for self-defense, and that's what these guns were good for. That's what the Colts were good for, percussion cap or cartridge, And the thing is you look at these guns, and you have to say to yourself, guns are built for a purpose. The percussion rifle that I have, hunting rifle. The Winchester, hunting, fighting, whatever you need, the Winchester does it. The shotgun, hunting, fighting, whatever you need, the shotgun does it. Colts, whether they be little pocket guns like this, a full 7.5-inch barrel like this, or a big caliber, they just don't fit the bill. Once again, I've been the Colt 38 Cowboy, and thank you for watching my Gun That Won the West video.